Okay. Okay, good evening. Welcome to tonight's Safety and Operations Committee meeting. Hi, Mr. Liggett. We just started. Okay. Well, okay, so we'll move on to the agenda. We have operations first with Mr. Fabrizio. He's got an update on the football shed, playground program update, some barrier gate ideas, and a new item that has recently popped up, and Ms. White actually shared an email in regards to solar for the school district, because that's a new grant that's coming out. So we are getting inundated with emails from various places saying, hey, take ours, but we've already made some steps in the right direction, I think. So we'll have a little discussion tonight moving forward. Then we'll have the safety agenda with Chief Miller, safety assessment, threat assessment, training update, how the hiring of the South Elementary School police officers is moving along, and then 2 grant opportunities for radios and the doors at Middle School East. And then we have some other items, notably how we made out with our DCED grant approval. Mr. Fabrizio.
Good evening. So we'll start with the football shed. It's echoing. That we've been working through. So I've been in contact with Mr. Subers to see how we're going to work through procurement on this. We have the basic idea of the footprint, where it's going to go. We just have to figure out what platform we're going to use to build this thing. So we're looking to run it through KPN. I've reached out to them. I've registered the project in their system. We're getting ready to set up a site meeting, and then we'll go from there. The township is going to require a full set of sealed plans. Logistically, it's a little tough because we have to go down the hill to get materials, cement trucks and everything down there to pour a pad or footers, whatever they're going to require. And it will have to be built on site. We can't really do a prefab. Estimated costs are around $100,000 right now for this structure.
So to help offset that, remember the last time Coach Heist was here, they do have some money set aside up to the tune of about $55,000. One of the things that I did was make sure that those funds could be used, because those are technically student monies. And Mr. Subers did say that that was fine. The holdup, though, was that the work on school property, if it's on our property, it has to follow our procurement rules and regulations. It cannot be done and then donated to us. That was one of the areas that we thought maybe we could save some monies on. But he's clear that if the work is done on our property, it must follow our procurement rules and regulations. So anything over $25,000 has to be bid or used through KPN.
So the good news is, though, if you're going through KPN, it eliminates some of that, and it's already pre-negotiated.
That is correct.
Okay, so that's positive anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, so was that the last thing on the football shed?
So we're looking to, I don't really want to do a stick build. I'm looking for something a little more substantial that'll last, a longer time. We're sinking a lot of money into this.
Yeah.
So we're looking at different options on construction materials.
Like a metal sort of structure?
Either maybe like what they call a Butler building, kind of like what district offices, how that's made, a little more substantial.
Okay.
So
it'll last longer.
Yeah, so we will run utilities in there. We will get electric over there.
But there won't be heat and cool, correct? No. Okay, so I guess one of the things that we talked about briefly last time was about the climate control, if certain materials are going to be stored in there, if that would be detrimental to them over the summer months, because I would assume it could be like 150 degrees in there.
No, it would be ventilated through.
Okay.
There would be some kind of either ridge vent or gable vent or something of that effect.
Something along those lines? Mm-hmm. Okay. So one of the things that Dr. Russell had brought up was on the other side of the field, there are the 2 band sheds. So is it possible that we could look, since those are all stadium items that are storing supplies for both groups, look at either... I don't know that it needs to be what the football shed is, because I think that would never need to be as large a structure as that. But I think they would benefit from, I don't know when the last time you were over there looking at those.
Yeah, we just put a new roof on them in the a couple months ago, actually.
Yeah. Just in terms, they're just not that tight though. Like when you're inside, like you see outside in certain areas, you see light. Obviously there's like whatever gophers or whoever living underneath. They certainly, I mean, not that you can avoid rodent problems, but they do store some food in there, and that's the purpose of the one shed. I know that the lighting in there is a little funky. Some of the exterior lights are falling off.
Okay.
I think that was one of the items that might have been addressed in a conversation. Was that earlier this week, Jim? Or last week, late last week? So, go ahead.
No.
I'm just hoping that if we're going to put the time and effort into going through research options for structures, we can do it once and not have to recreate the wheel for the next.
So would you want to combine structures and make it larger, or keep them separate?
You know what? I guess that would be at the discretion and the recommendation of between, grounds/administration and boosters. What they use those sheds for, the one shed they use for props and supplies for field shows. The other shed is really more for events and hospitality and things like that. So I think if there was one larger solid structure, I mean, I don't see how that doesn't benefit them. But
Logistically, is it easier for them to load out where the sheds are
they
now?
that's a great question. That's a question directly for them, because I don't know the answer to that. I just know, like, I've never really, other than look in the props shed, I've never actually been in there. I have been in the hospitality shed, and like I said, with the exterior lights the way they are, it's dark over. Like, listen, the lighting situation on the outskirts of this stadium is tricky in some of those areas. Like, both sheds have at least one light that's like hanging off. So those are things like maintenance things that would be easy enough to kind of shore up. But at the same time, if we're going to put $100,000 into like a grand structure, we also want it to look uniform as well, right? And not have these eyesores just randomly floating out there. So worth looking into.
So that's good information to know, because we are also, one of the things that Dr. Russell has charged Joe and I with is a complete review of the sheds
Yeah.
in general. So that would be part of that. They were scheduled to be part of that as well, that whole design. And if maybe we can make some improvements, then maybe we can take a look at that.
Yeah, either improvements and when you talk about, I know that they do pull the truck up along that gravel area and load out. So maybe that does need to be separate. Like, I don't know from efficiency standpoint what would be best, but I do know that they will look a little ragged next to a brand new. But not, even though it's not next to it, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
Yep. And we're working so hard to get the stadium, it's like brand new in so many
We've made
areas.
good improvements.
Unbelievable.
Yes, yeah. Everything from the safety aspect all the way through.
All the way
We
around.
continue to work on it.
I totally agree. Yep. So anyway, that's my 2 cents about the shed, but I'm happy about the football shed.
Anybody else? No? Okay, Evergreen Playground. So we've been working with the admin team over there, Mr. Marsh, on the different aspects of replacing their playground. We met with him, Mr. Weaver and I, last week to go over some different design decisions and options he would like to see. We kind of went off the playground at South because theirs is fairly new, to see if we could, not like a cookie cutter design, but like a jumping off point to go that route. So I guess another week or two, Mr. Marsh was going to reach out to the different playground vendors and bring them in to get some baseline quotes that we can tweak. And we're hoping not to exceed $250,000 for this structure, and we're going to try and have the home and school. We're going to bring in the home and school to help drive some design decisions and offset costs, like over at South.
Which is a similar, yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what the same process that we followed at South. Obviously, times have changed a little bit. South was done for $140,000 plus minus $15,000 from the home and school. The initial quote when Mrs. Franciosa was at Evergreen was north of $330,000.
Yeah.
But that was a design where we said, okay, give us everything. And they take full advantage of that. So now we're looking at that, and that is really what Mr. Marsh is looking at, is what was provided in that diagram exhibit. What do we need? He's actually reaching out to Mr. DeAndrea as well, because Dave made some critical decisions as we built the south playground as well. So that's good.
It would be interesting to see what an updated quote from the South vendor would be, cost-wise. I don't know if they've reached back out to exactly the same, but
I think it was Recreational Resources, I think, is the name. I think.
understanding that it would be probably more money, I got that part, but just so you could
That's
have a
a good idea, yeah.
comparable, you know, an apples to apples as to what it would be worth now.
All right. Well, that's a good idea.
All right. So next, we're bringing back up the barrier gates. We're looking to install these at the in and out points of campus, so Wortman, Stadium, High School Drive, and Campus Drive. These will be manually operated or people operated, so they're not automated in any way. We're looking at approximately $10,000 per system installed. This will help us, say we have, you know, graduation. We can, right now we park a truck down on Wortman and, you know, say, no, you have to go around, you can't come in. This would free up another body for, you know, traffic control or somewhere else during that time. Also help with the safety of the spectators and students and athletes or whoever's here when we do have big events, to keep traffic going where we want it to go. So, any questions on that?
So my only question here, because we had discussed this before.
Right.
Is there the option to mobilize them after the fact?
What do you mean?
To make them not manual? To make them
To
electronic?
motorize them?
To motorize them, right. Or is there one that you can purchase that can't be manual and then retrofitted, should we decide to do that in the future?
So I'm sure there are. I've seen floodgates throughout Montgomery County that come down automatically, like when a river's going to crest and
Sure.
flood out roads, they automatically close. I can certainly investigate that, but it's going to be more than 10,000 a gate. You're probably like 50,000 a gate.
Yeah, I guess,
so
you
then
mean
solar,
to
you're
be
gonna-
able to update it?
Yeah, so then you're going to have to be, I guess, solar powered unless you get power there. You're going to need a way to communicate with it, so that's probably going to be over cellular because we're not going to get data there, so that's another charge.
Okay,
And then the
Yeah,
maintenance.
it gets
and-
really.
cost prohibitive all
yeah,
around,
it'd
all
be
right,
cheaper for me to have someone go down and
okay, all right. I just was
physically
curious if
move
that
it.
was something that we could retrofit
Yeah.
in an emergency.
I looked at a couple of different options, and in speaking with Joe, and I just think this is the better way to go.
Yeah,
Just
gets
from
the
the
job
usage
done,
point.
and yet it's a
And
fiscal.
and the one at high school and campus, for instance, we could even pivot that so it could go in either direction.
Oh, well, that would
If we
be
put it on the
helpful.
proper corner, we could prevent traffic between the faculty lot and the stadium, or entirely block High School Drive alongside the stadium.
Okay.
So-
So there's some options.
one thing before we venture down this path is we have to look at the right-of-ways on the state roads and the township roads to make sure we're not in the right-of-way where we install these. So I did reach out prior, and we're safe. We're pretty safe if we stay behind the telephone poles on any road, but we definitely want to investigate that further to make sure they're installed right the first time and we don't have to move them.
Okay, but that wouldn't be, not on campus, like on campus, it doesn't matter.
Like
to
off
them.
of 29.
Oh,
off
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
Wortman.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
depending on where we finally end up deciding that we want them. I mean, this could be something that we do a couple this year and then maybe decide like, hey, it wouldn't be a bad idea to isolate the student lot at some point.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking about, was the student lot, right?
Whether the band's practicing or we have an event in there or,
Yeah.
Helicopters landing. I mean,
That's a one-off.
Hypothetically.
That is happening this week, just so you know.
Okay, thank you for letting us know. Hopefully we'll get an email about that. Because people in the surrounding communities really freak out when those helicopters are in. So is there a recommendation at this point to come in November? What's October? No. When's our-
November.
November,
Yeah.
okay. And it'll be for 3?
4.
4, so it's a $40,000 ask.
Yeah.
Got it.
And also on these, I would put probably reflective tape so people
Yeah.
can see them,
Yep.
which is a minimal cost.
You
Awesome.
can actually get a skirt that fits that void space you see in the picture.
Okay.
Just wraps around it, so that whole triangular piece would be reflective.
Oh, Oh,
Yeah, we can have something made for that.
you know a lot about barrier gates, Dean. Okay,
We looked at some things.
cool. All right. So I'm comfortable with that. Are you comfortable with that coming on board? Okay.
So the big talk right now is solar, and there's a big grant opportunity going on. So there's a 30% U.S. Treasury grant toward your system, and then up to 50% from the Solar for Schools grant, depending on how the school's classified. So I did meet with a couple different people, and we came up with some possible areas. So I'm looking at either West, South Evergreen, and possibly the high school. I'm not for putting the panels on the roofs. One, you have to take in structural considerations. Can the roof handle the load? Once it's up there, it's probably a ballasted system, so you're going to be adding, they're called sleds with, concrete blocks or whatever on there. And then there's the whole, okay, well, before you dump all this solar on there, are you going to do the roof? You don't want to install your array and then 5 years later have to crane it off because you need a roof. So my thoughts are to have it on the ground somewhere. There's pros and cons of that too. I mean, you have to worry about vandalism, more steel to, anchor them to the ground. You need substructures. But overall, I would steer the committee towards a ground mount system.
So a couple of things to add to this. So I was at a fall business managers retreat. One of the things that they were talking about is they like the idea of putting the solar panels on the roof because they didn't have a lot of land. We're not in that situation. We have land, we have areas where we can place things on pieces of property that we own. So we don't have to necessarily worry about that. Some quick hitters here from CM3. Again, CM3 is our ESCO agent, and we always go to them when we have these questions about these types of things. We worked heavily with them about the DCED grant that we did get approval for, which we'll hit a little bit later. They said today, they sent an email, the top 10 things to know about solar. It's going to be run through DCED, which is the Department of Community and Economic Development. We have until they have until October of 2024 now to actually develop the guidelines. So the guidelines and the application aren't even available for us yet. That's now. If they move like all government does, it will probably be delayed a little bit. So I think we've got some time here to generate some ideas and some thoughts to move forward. So it's not like we have to pull the trigger right away. The grants will be distributed equally across the state into 3 regions of equal population. So that's something we don't really necessarily control. I don't know if that means you've got the West in Pittsburgh, you've got the East in Philadelphia, and then the center is everything else. I don't know. This is one of those weird government things when they create these things. So we'll have to pay attention to that. Districts that are eligible for low income tax credit bonus will be prioritized. And school districts within 50 miles of recent coal plant closures will also be prioritized. So we don't necessarily have some of those things working in our favor. There are federal incentives through the Inflation Reduction Act, and the awarded projects will be tracked publicly and won't probably not take not until the beginning of the new calendar year. And we will have, they're guesstimating at least through 2027 at this point in time to get the project completed. So those are just some things that we're thinking about as we go forward. So Joe, I don't know if you
Yeah,
wanna
so
add.
I do know that the grant is on a first come, first served basis, and it's rolling. So time is of the essence. I've already pulled all the PICO bills for the schools that we're looking at. They need a 12-month history, so then they can put something together for us to look at. So this is south. This is the back field here. I do know there's a PICO gas line that runs somewhere back there.
It's high pressure.
It's high pressure transmission line, so that might be out altogether. I don't know yet until we start down the path of this project.
So that line runs from the far right side of the picture to the upper left, from point to point.
Yeah, so that's probably out then.
It'll pretty much cut that diagram in half.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a small array, but I don't know
The
if
return.
Pico will let you even build on top of that. Probably not. So, the next one is Evergreen. I mean, this is a strip of land here, right across from Campus Drive. Our utilities enter. I should have circled where our utilities come in. But on the end of Evergreen is our transformer, so it will be easily, tied back into our building infrastructure there. That's another thing to consider is how far away the array is to where you need to connect into the building.
And that transformer powers the entire campus?
No, just Evergreen.
Oh, only Evergreen. Okay.
Yeah. Each building has its own transformer.
Oh, I didn't realize the campus.
Yep.
did that. Okay.
Next slide, we have the high school. So this is behind the field house and the area back there. I don't think it's used that much. There is a hill back there and some flat areas, so I thought that would be a good area. And we do have some electrical equipment in that field house which could backfeed into the school.
Okay. And that's west.
Yes.
And then this is west. So the top is kind of out by a retention basin. We have an area by the wall leading to the fields, and then in the back of the school there are all possible areas. I mean, west has a lot of ground, but then again, you have to get that power back to the school
Right.
for us to use it. So you'd be spending a lot of money in, I'll call it a transmission cable to get that power back.
It's definitely going back to the school though,
Yeah.
So this isn't a kind of where we're gonna feed back into the grid?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll I don't think Pennsylvania does net metering yet, so it will go back into the school. We figure maybe, talking with CM3, maybe a 20% reduction in our PICO bill. We still have yet to, we have to determine that once we get all the figures and figure out how many, panels you can put in, how much you're going to be generating.
Yeah, I guess I would be curious to understand, like, what size area equals what size amount of
Yeah.
power?
So this is just an initial overview. They're going to do a solar.
Isolated areas.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
going to do a solar study to see how the sun tracks and,
Yeah.
maximize the panel's orientation for the most amount of sunlight per day.
Right.
They're not going to be tracking panels. They're going to be fixed. So they do have panels that can track with the sun, but these will be fixed arrays.
So during XYZ time, it'll capture, and then the other
Yeah.
times it'll be like, okay. So I guess, and I don't know, I just don't know a ton about it at all, other than like when you drive past and you see them sometimes, right? So I guess my question is, I like the idea of doing it in parcels of land that we can't really use, that are being unused. We don't have to mow them then, hypothetically, right? So, so there's that. The other thing that I was wondering about, I don't know if these, I'm assuming, would be like lower,
Yeah.
but I have seen panels that are almost like shelters.
Yeah, they make parking garages out of them.
So in terms of like things, I know for East and West, we were talking about outdoor classrooms, greenhouses, that type of thing. I don't know if there's an opportunity to look at the areas that we were talking about, some of those structures, and creating those structures with solar. Does that make sense?
It does. I don't know if you would get the output you're looking for from one structure. It'd have to be pretty big.
Yeah, and so that's
Or-
what I was saying. Like, I don't know how much, what size makes a difference, or if that could be like a one little area. I don't know if
We can certainly ask that when we're, trying to figure
it just
this
would be
out.
helpful if it would be like a double duty thing, right? Like if it also was a shelter, or there are some areas on playgrounds, for example, that there is no shade at all, and it's just oppressively hot, for the kids. So if it could be a shelter of some sort, it
So-
just seems like it would be beneficial.
Two things from a financial perspective.
Yeah.
One is the return on investment.
Right.
Solar is historically, it drags.
Mm-hmm.
But now they do have additional credits and these federal credits as well that might help to speed that up. So we're looking at that. The other thing I just want to point out is that last year we were approached, and I met with someone who is working with the state to put a 400-acre, what do they call it, solar array
Solar
on
farm.
the prison property. With that, this is separate than this. This is before all this. There is a funding mechanism for the local government and the local school district to receive monies associated with that program. So that was, yes, that was somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 coming back to the school district, plus another $100,000 back to the township. So they kind of came in, they made a splash. I shared the information with Dr. Russell. I think she actually shared it in a weekend letter, and now we haven't heard a word. And I was thinking that because Bob Liggett is here, and Mr. Liggett has said, hey, if we're looking for land, why don't we talk to the state about the prison land, perhaps for if we needed to expand. So again, I haven't made much inroad on that, but that would be something that we might also want to take into consideration. Hey, maybe go into an agreement to expand maybe that 400, maybe make it 800 if that's possible. And then maybe we can share in some of that cost and some of that ability to get some capture of energy credits, whatever it's going to be, or cash in some way, shape, or form. That's complicated, though. That's very complicated with a lot of lawyers. But the idea is not forgotten. So,
And we would be eligible for the SREC credits with this, so
All right.
that's based on production.
So a lot of possibilities, but more to come.
yep. And
Okay.
there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of vendors popping up, giving a lot of, hey, you can make money and all that kind of stuff. So we've got to be very careful when we work through this type of stuff. CM3s are a trusted vendor that we've utilized just for starters. We'd still have to go out, figure out what vendor is good for us.
Besides the informational part of this, is there an ask here? You just want to
No,
get
we're
our
just
permission to
letting you
keep
know
going? I was going to say, keep going.
We're working on it.
Good.
Full speed ahead, so just getting it out there.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, moving to Chief Miller and safety.
I know you're aware we had a safety assessment done by the county's Department of Public Safety's law enforcement group. They did the 3 buildings here, the high school, middle school east, and South Elementary. They've issued a preliminary report to me. Basically, that's a chance for us to go back and forth about some things in the report just to make sure that it's correct. For instance, spelling and grammatical errors, things of that nature. But their report in and of itself would remain the same. So there were several positive feedbacks and references within the report, as you can see there. One mentioned the strong interest by district personnel to be involved in safety that they were able to see while they were here. The other, the district's seriousness in maintaining a safe environment was one of the comments they made from a staff member that they had engaged at Middle School West, and then some of the signage and things that we have around the district. So we're very happy with that. Some of the things, if you can advance that slide, Mr. Weaver. So just some of the things throughout the report that were an underlying recommendation from this particular assessment was, obviously we're already aware of additional camera coverage throughout the district, both inside and outside. And this, by the way, was a hard facility assessment. This didn't do any kind of assessing of programs and initiatives with students yet. That's going to come next. Bollard placement for vehicle approaches, protection of entranceways to several buildings. Don't have them consistently, so we've been looking at what it would take to do those, and we want to make them not only functional but aesthetically pleasing. It might be something with lights mounted on them, or pediments that might indicate the school building or something of that nature.
Are planters a possibility for
Yes.
that? Okay, so that would be okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know if
there's
that was an acceptable.
yeah, there's an array of different ways that you can do it. They're always developing new things that kind of integrate with the landscape, if you will.
Okay.
So there's a whole program on crime prevention through environmental design. That's
Okay.
another program we're thinking about taking a look at to see how that would help us with our different buildings and different locations we're at. So.
And how many buildings with the Ballard placement are we talking about of the?
Well, the 3 that were here, they each had different areas that it was
Oh,
recommended. So
okay.
we didn't do all 7, actually 8
okay.
buildings in
I
the
gotcha,
district
gotcha.
just yet.
I
But
understand.
it's just a general recommendation that, most people look at their front door, their main entry point, and that the recommendations here are to expand that to other locations,
Great.
things that are ground level, et cetera.
Okay.
So, and none of these, by the way, were a surprise to us. I mean, there was no hidden observation that they made that we were unaware of. So we were happy with that as well. They appreciated the signage throughout the district. We've been working, Joe and I have been working together with the grounds crew, getting up different signage. that ties into not only directing responders, but also the public in and around our campus. The numbering of exterior windows for responders, we already did the door system in compliance with the state recommendations. They recommended a little more guidance with regards to room numbers or window numbers on the exterior of the buildings as responders come in. So we're going to work to see if we need to do all of them, or we can do corners of buildings as reference points, or what would work best with our responders. We did talk about the access and approach to our building. So one of the things we've talked about in the past was a secondary access point to Middle School East, as well as a ring road around the back of the high school here and of South Elementary. So they were also noted in this report for the two buildings mentioned, high school and South, to give us 360-degree access to the buildings for not only our use, but also obviously for responders that are coming in. They noticed that some of our signage is dated, not consistent from building to building. And again, as I mentioned, we're working on that. And the refreshing, which is actually going on this week, of painted areas, so crosswalks, curbs, things of that nature. Excuse me. And then they recommended a review of our reunification process, which is a tabletop that we have tentatively scheduled for the week prior to Thanksgiving. So that was already in the works, but they made a recommendation to continue to work with that. Now that's a countywide push for that. It's not just us.
Okay, can you talk about that a little bit?
So the reunification would be if we had an off-site evacuation of a facility.
Literally
Like
that.
pick
Okay.
up the whole student body and move them to a separate location. How do we reunify them with
Got
their
it.
parents, guardians, whatever it might be? So we have a plan in place. We haven't practiced it in and of itself, an actual hands-on. We've done some conversations about it in meetings. We want to take that to the next level, do a tabletop, which is again what we're planning on in this November, and then moving to maybe something in the spring or early next year.
And who is part of that tabletop?
Excuse me, what was the question again?
Who is part of that tabletop? Obviously, all of your guys.
So we're gonna mix all of our stakeholders, so staff, operations group, administrative team. I'll invite the first responders to come in. The county will probably be the ones that will oversee it.
Okay, so building representation from each building.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is there a designated point person for that type of rollout in general, or?
Not necessarily. So the IU has adopted a program which aligns with our I Love You Guys Foundation.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Okay.
And I apologize. I knew as soon as I started talking, I'd start coughing.
No worries, Dean.
I think I'm allergic to Mr. Weaver. Okay. Threat assessment. I know it's been a conversation we've had many times. This past month, all the safety and security team went through an online threat assessment training program. It's governed by the PCCD, Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. This is an identical training program that our threat assessment team members get. It's just available online. Comes in 12 different components. They finished it over a 2-week period at the beginning of this last month. And it is an Act 55 approved training piece. So the hang up for us, I found out the other day when I didn't see any certificates come back from the PCCD, is there's something to do with the registration and they weren't issuing the certificates out. So I'm working through that. We'll get credit for it. That's not a problem. I said, if someone logs on, you obviously know they're on your program. So
Yeah, right.
if we can run a history of that. So, but it was good to get all of our team members seeing the same material at the same time, having those conversations, and again, working with the threat assessment teams in each of their buildings. So, and then we do have, I believe, 4 staff members going this month to the IU to get the in-person training. So we continue to keep building that program out. And there's a few retirees that, we need to replace. South hiring. So this week we completed our second round of interviews. We have several recommended candidates that are going to meet with Dr. Russell and HR in the coming week. And we expect to have a name before you in the next 2 to 3 weeks before the next board meeting to consider the replacement at South. 2 grants that I became aware of at our last job alike meeting at the IU. actually not 2 grants, but a large funding stream that the IU is handling on behalf of the state throughout Montgomery County. So the conversation was that it was totally focused on safety and security items. So 2 of the large items that we currently have in the mix were radios for our school police. We knew they were going to be expensive. Jim did include it in the budget as a capital expense, but I just simply asked a question at our meeting. I said, would this be something that would fit? And they said it would. So we thought, why not ask if they can fund this and we can use that capital money elsewhere. So, and in light of that, we've had some issues with doors at Middle School East. So Joe and his team came out. We did an evaluation, got some proposals. So that replacement project for those 2 doors that weren't necessarily on our radar, I submitted those as well. So about $125,000 we're asking from the IU. We'll hear back. The evaluator that they work with at the state has to go through the process and then get back to us. So that's just what we're waiting on.
Awesome.
So we were looking at different ways to reach the kids, different conversations we can have. Trading cards have been a popular item for law enforcement for quite some time. Firefighters use them, EMS personnel, hospital staff use them. So Officer Elverson is heading up an investigation into these. It'll be about $1,600 for all of our staff to get these cards. Hand out to the kids. It gives them a personal message, gives them some encouragement. I thought we'd marry it up with some kind of a contest monthly for, the kids to, win certain prizes or maybe a ride to school or something like that. So we'll see where it goes. It's very popular. There's a few historical cards rolling around, but I didn't want to share mine particularly. It was just a different guy out there,
So will you have a card though?
Yeah, I had 3 in my career.
No, here.
Oh, no, not yet.
If we do this, would you have a new one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
You'll
yeah.
have one. Will administration have one too?
No,
'Cause I
that's
feel like this would only be for the SPO.
this would be the SPOs and the security staff.
Security staff. All right. So you don't want a Jim Weaver card floating around? Because I
Well, I'd
feel
love
like
a
that
Jim
one
Weaver
might be
card.
worth money.
It'd be like a Ty Cobb card or something, probably
That's what
over
I'm
time.
saying. They would be more rare, and they would maybe be.
Okay, we'll go with
No?
rare. I like that.
That poor guy.
All right. So I love this idea. I think
Yeah.
that
So we're just looking for ways to reach out to the kids. I mean, they've been involved in all the trunk or treats and all that stuff. And I mean, I substituted in one of the buildings today, and they didn't necessarily know my name, but there was a lot of engagement going on with the kids. I thought that was great. So we just want to keep that trend going,
Awesome.
and that's all I have at the moment.
Would you give us just an update? So we have one out on FMLA, right? Still.
Yes, for about another 4
Are we
weeks.
almost done? Okay. So
Yep.
we're almost back after the South hire
Mhm.
by November or
Yep.
December. Okay, awesome. And what's the timeline for the trading card situation?
Oh, sorry. We can turn them around in under a month.
Okay.
So we
maybe
just-
for the new year.
I might ask Mr. Comp or somebody to do the photos. If they want to have kids in it, we just have to make sure the child is permitted to do that. So over and above the district's requirement, my kid can or can't be photographed.
Yeah.
I've asked the officers, I'm like, identify these children so we can specifically ask. Because, having your kid on a website with the district's one thing, but having your child's photo on 1,000 cards that are being handed out to other kids, I don't know.
I don't
So
know,
I just want to
kinda-
make sure
I
that,
kind of like
that
the
they're
idea of
good
it
with
just
it.
being the individual, not a child. But
Okay, well, we can go that way too.
But yeah, I mean, if it's gonna have statistics about you and all,
What's that?
if it's gonna have statistics on it and
Yeah, there'll be some
fun
neat stuff on there.
facts, it should be.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Maybe we can work into operations when we're done. We'll go there next.
Yeah. I can't imagine anybody not loving that idea. So we can bring that ready. As soon as you're ready, we're ready to go with that. What'd you say? Oh yeah. We need one for Ken. Make sure Ken gets a card, okay?
Ken already has his card.
Does he?
Yep.
Why don't I have one?
Yeah, when
I
I
didn't
was
get one.
when I was researching this, all of a sudden he's like,
Do they hand them out?
when Officer Alverson was researching it, he goes, the dog already has a card. He goes, we're behind. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm glad I know
I'll
that.
find it on my email.
Because
I'll
I'm
share
gonna
it with you.
need to have one of those. I feel like we need to. I just love that.
I'll
that
check eBay. We'll see. It's got to be out there somewhere.
clearly, Bob's selling them for profit now. Okay. Off the record. All right. Anyway, moving along. Sorry about that.
Go ahead, Joe. The lighting option.
Okay, so we've been investigating the lighting options for the high school in the student parking lot. Yes, it is dark down there, so we're looking at retrofitting additional and or replacing the heads on those poles that are out there. So I need to, get with the manufacturer and figure out, the height of the pole, beam spread, how much it's going to illuminate and how many lumens we need per head on there. So we are investigating that. As well as, the stadium, we're still trying to figure out what to do back there. If we stay with a portable unit and just rent it for the games, or if we want something permanent back there.
Yeah. So with regards to the student lot, because I do witness it on at night a lot as I come for pickup, my impression of it is that where the open lot area is, there are no poles. It's sort of like a hole of darkness, and then other areas are like illuminated and you can see better underneath them, right? So that's why, and I think I may have said this in an email at some point, that I feel like floodlights on the 29 side in may be the most, that'll solve the problem in that spot.
And
because
do we have poles down there now? I don't.
So that's what I mean. It's so funny
I have
because
to
when you
look.
go out there, and I think they're in the stadium tonight, actually. But when you go out there, like on Tuesday, I was on my way back from the district office, and pulled up through 29 to pull into the lot for pickup. That whole block of spots where the kids actually are and they're moving is just dark. So the lights that are bright. Some of them look like they might be LED already. Is that some of
They
them?
should
been
all be
replaced?
LED.
Oh, they're all LED. Some
Yeah.
of them are brighter than others, right? But then there's like the way that the line of them are and where they are, it's not hitting where the kids are standing. So if they were standing closer to them or underneath them, they'd be in light. But they need to have that open area on the front of the 29 side, and that's why I feel like floodlights may be helpful, because it would actually direct light to those spots. Plus, they can't be obstructed because they're using that as a field surface, quote unquote. Does that make sense?
Can they practice in the teacher lot?
It's not any better lit.
No, I wasn't sure.
Also, there tends to be so many other things going on
Yeah.
at the same time.
And then if something's in the stadium, the parking for whatever's in the
Yeah.
stadium is in the teacher lot. The fact of the matter is that the kids are practicing in a parking lot, right? Which is fine, and I think that that's what's been established and that's what they're used to. It's not a problem until it's dark at 6 o'clock. But when I tell you it is dark at 9 o'clock. So as I understand it, there was a parent injury moving props on Tuesday because of how dark it was. And so obviously, just and I said this in my email, a safety standpoint, same with the paving. If you can't see where you're stepping, they need that to be a surface. If it's a practice surface truly, they need it to be a safe, solid practice facility. Yeah, and so, it's hard to tell because, like I said, they're in the stadium tonight, but when you go out there, like when we leave this, you'll see that whole front patch. It's just like it's dark. There's not two ways about it. That's the area.
Yeah,
that's
I'll
dark.
reach out to the township too, to see if they'll allow that kind of lighting down there. I don't think it'll interfere.
Which
Which-
lighting do you mean? The floodlights?
Putting poles down there shooting towards the building. Yeah, down by 29.
Coming in, not
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Coming in.
I don't think they'll have a problem, but I need to run it by them to see if they have any objections with us putting lighting in.
Same night, I was coming in from Trap Road, and where I was coming in, I was in light. There were light poles there. It was in a bright area, so your eyes don't have much time to adjust when you're going across the parking lot, and they're sitting in darkness. So luckily, there's a shine on the flugelhorn. You can see that, but if that isn't there, you literally can be surprised that there's a whole band right there.
Yeah, it's actually it's a little strange to see them all in formation in that much darkness at night, because they don't release at 9 o'clock exactly. So if I pull in at 9, they're not out of there until like 9:20. It's pitch black. The other thing with regards to that is that just the timing of the permissions, is that it would just need to be seasonal, right? Like, I don't know that we necessarily need to illuminate that area at off times. We would only need to have it be lit in use,
Like stadium lighting.
almost like stadium lighting, right?
I would just need to figure out how to make that not part of the lights that come on already. So we'd have to run new wiring back to the school instead of piggybacking off of the lights that are there.
Sure. Well, how do you like that one that you're in the back corner by the bathrooms in the stadium? That's its own thing, right?
That's
The one that you have rented.
The rental? Yeah.
that's a
Yeah, they're rentals.
Yeah, we could absolutely do rentals.
So that's what I mean. Like, is that really the answer from, because November 2nd, they're not out there again until August.
Yeah, so rental, we can look at, they're $300 a month per unit,
So
which
August.
isn't too bad.
So, but you're talking September, October. You're talking like a 3-month rental
Yeah.
times 2. And I don't know. Is it noisy?
Well, the only thing is, we did talk about this because then they've got to be moved because those parking spots are the kids park the next day. If we put them in the grass, that's fine, right? We just got to secure
Worry
them in
about
some way,
someone
shape, or
stealing
form.
them.
But so if we put them out in the asphalt.
I mean,
Then-
they're right
then
on
they have to move.
29.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Let me hook up and take it. Yeah.
So now we know that Joe steals.
Yeah, I was
rentals.
gonna
No,
say.
Yeah,
It's a tough.
I
tough
would never know
neighborhood.
to steal a light like that, but I mean, Joe's
resale one.
resale market on eBay. He's got the
I mean, I have-
cards and the lights on eBay.
I have friends that have backhoes stolen. I mean,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's,
Okay. So, but anyway, so that's what I was thinking. Maybe we don't have to make it such a big capital issue. We could just have it be a temporary.
Don't forget,
Annual.
there's also the request to somehow try to figure out the tower as well.
So the tower, as I understand,
Idea.
yeah, I don't know if you've ever really been close enough to that tower to touch it. I don't know that anybody over 25 should be climbing it.
We know that.
Yeah. No, I know you know. I know you know, but you know, we're not spring chickens anymore. You know. So,
Oh, okay. I don't.
so that would be helpful. But those types of structures are sort of a standalone item, and I think we could probably just. I mean, did they send you options? I didn't see the notes of that. Okay, but there are options out there that are made for specifically that, right? And that's sort of, to me, that would be secondary to the lighting, or thirdary,
All right.
because I think the
Is that a word?
Yep. It would be the paving would be number 2. And paving, I think, is really achievable. That's like our only lot that we didn't touch, I think, on campus, right? Because we did the faculty lot.
Yep.
Well, no, East Side I don't think was done, but
Evergreen wasn't done.
okay.
There's
We did a lot of paving last summer,
Yeah.
Yep.
and this would be maybe the next one to go.
All right.
Okay, thank you for that.
All right.
Thank you for paying such close attention to that, because it really, you'd never know it unless you pass there at night.
Correct.
Thank you.
And now that there's, aside from everything, the things that keep me up at night, the liability, obvious.
Yeah, and listen, and the parent, he wasn't hurt badly, but at the same time, it would have been avoided maybe if,
Sure.
yeah, yep.
Okay, so moving on, as I mentioned earlier, we did receive approval for the DCED grant. As a reminder, we were looking at a total package for all fire panels of about 2.4 million. That's what we applied for. It was mandatory 25% school district kick-in buy-in, so we were actually looking for about a $1.8 million grant. What was actually funded and approved was 1.1 million. So right now, Mr. Fabrizio is going through the listing of the buildings, trying to separate what actually fits into that 1.1. Plus, remember, 25% is our buy-in. So the total package that we're looking at is about just less than 1.4 million, 1,375,000. That's kind of where we're at right now. And we still desire to have the rest of the buildings taken care of as well. And we also know that we're looking at other options like phase 2 and 3 for the auditorium, which our plan had been to look at a potential bond issue in the new calendar year of 2025. How does that all fit? Well, look at what that total dollar funding might be, have it go through all of the processes that we typically do with Jamie Doyle and bringing everybody in, having school board buy-in, and then looking at what kind of impact that might have for a potential operations building. Whether we buy it, build it, put it somewhere, we know that that conversation is ongoing. And perhaps because this $1.1 million is a grant, perhaps thinking in terms of, well, maybe now that $1.1 million is now available to help offset a future cost for an operations building. Just, it's a general theory, thought process. We need feedback on that. I don't know if the whole school board would agree on that, but we as an administration are thinking perhaps that's a positive for us, that $1.1 million we can now look at as a positive grant coming funding source to help offset the cost of that in the future, perhaps looking at that as maybe offsetting the cost for the operations building. Just a thought. I don't have any particulars in here to talk about that. Let me know your thoughts over the next couple of weeks, and then we can kind of hash that out. It's obviously, we'll need to go to the school board, full school board anyway, and we're not there. We're still working on options at this point in
So
time.
the grant was not awarded yet.
The grant
Oh,
was
yeah.
officially awarded. It
Oh.
was approved.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
that's
It was
crucial
approved.
information. I
Yes.
missed that.
Oh,
in the-
sorry.
okay, got it. So it was 1.1 awarded.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
But we still need the 25% buy.
I understand that part. So I know, but that's exciting because
Yes.
the grant gets awarded. That's exciting.
Absolutely. It is our first major
Yeah, it's a lot of
grant
money.
that-
It's a big,
yes.
big number because I know we've missed out on a couple of other ones recently, and then
Yep.
this one is a big
Correct.
chunk of change.
Yep.
Okay, so Joe, you're working to find out what can be covered under that amount of money based
So I
on the
know-
requirements of the grant.
Right, so I know we're gonna definitely do Evergreen, East, I can do West, and Skip Back. That puts me at 1.142.
What's 25%?
So
Yeah, plus
I still have
25%.
Schwanksville, but that will put me at 1.47. So maybe we can negotiate and get that, keep it under 1.4 with the vendor. Say, I mean, 1.4 million. You got to help me out here. You know?
They'll be like, well,
give 'em a
where's
trading
where's
card.
5 million? Yeah,
Yeah.
if there's a Jim Crate trading card, you might.
Yeah.
The other option is so South would be the last because that panel
Is the newest.
is the newest.
Yeah.
So I'll look at possibly upgrading the remaining loops at the high school because we were forced to do 2 loops.
I
if
remember
you
that.
remember.
Yeah.
That was $40-some thousand. So just bite the bullet, do the rest of the loops, and keep the panel until the loops fail, and then replace it.
Okay.
Because just the high school alone, 715.
Okay.
Thousand.
Okay. So that would take up the bulk of it, and this will get more done,
Yeah, I'd rather just
more places.
yeah.
Okay. So, what is the timeline then?
So, once the grant, the funds come in, but my timeline would be middle school East this summer because it's going to be offline. We're going to be in there. There's not going to be no one's allowed in. It's offline because we're doing the univents and the rooftop units this summer.
And for what months? Like
Probably
literally from like
mid-June
June.
to like the school.
Legit. Okay.
Yeah, like we're going to be up. We're going to be up against it. Some of my guys say.
So the entire building will be
Shut down.
completely shut down.
Yes.
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 And that's okay. So as an aside, which has nothing to do with this, who has that? Is that the first? That's the first time I'm hearing of
No.
that.
Well, yes, but the school note.
Everybody knows.
Yes.
Stakeholders. know.
We've had not all the stakeholders, I mean, management, administration, we've actually had to
principals
have
know.
those conversations because we have multiple programs that go on in the summertime.
Correct.
Just in general.
Yep.
That we've got to address. And so special education is working on them. Arthur is working on them from a curriculum perspective. We need to bring in Krista Venza, who has historically, that's where the LIFT program has been happening
Oh,
at
it's been at
Schwenksville.
East. Got.
Yes.
You were
That's-
talking
That's
about
been at
East.
Schwenksville, so we were thinking we're going to keep that there.
Oh, gotcha.
There was a desire to bring it all into one building so we can maximize savings, clean all the buildings, and then address that because
Right.
it hasn't run smooth the past number of years because of all the programs in all of our buildings,
Okay.
to be honest with
It's
you.
hard to
Okay.
clean a building
Yes.
when it runs
We have
nonstop.
outdoor YMCA programs that come in,
Okay.
skip back in middle school
So there's a
East.
lot of folks,
Yes.
and just so and not to, but to add to the list, so Power Packs is housed in East, and all 3 summer pantries are hosted at East. So,
That's another thing.
just
yes.
a word to keep everybody talking freely. We should have that conversation as soon as possible,
Yep.
Jim.
Okay.
And maybe over-communicate it.
I would like to have our own ducks in order before we bring in anybody else because,
Absolutely, of course, but I think a heads up,
yep,
like kind of just so that, other groups, like you said, can start making other contingency plans, because then there needs to be another home, there needs to be transportation of materials to another home.
Absolutely.
We would need, help from operations with that, no doubt. Only so much fits in cars. And there's a
Got
lot.
the band truck.
Huh?
Yeah, the band truck.
Yeah. Do we really want to? Is that the box we're opening right now? Really? Things are going so smoothly. I know this guy.
he's not
this
getting
guy.
a card. He's
I
not
know.
getting a card.
All right. Okay, so I'm excited about that, obviously. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
It is the largest grant we've ever received in my history here.
Yeah.
And again, it was
Very
a
generous.
bunch of teamwork that got everything in there. I'm happy that we met the timeline, and I'm finally happy that we received some recognition from the state.
Yeah.
Number of criteria, oftentimes we don't qualify
Right.
in a lot of these places, but some other local school districts did. The
Oh.
first round, remember the first
Well,
round
this
was
is
the
very-
big one.
Well, this is very generous, though, and
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
it would be a huge help to the
Yes.
community overall. So East would be first.
I have East and
That makes
No.
sense. I agree with that.
I'm sorry, Evergreen's first
Oh, Evergreen's first.
and East the second.
Okay, because they're going to be offline. Evergreen's not offline, but
No,
East is
we're gonna have to
offline.
figure that out.
Okay.
Then West, Skipback, Schwanksville, High School Whoops, and then South. So
All right, but the grant will cover all of that, so we have to talk about the numbers and the timing. So are you foreseeing like a 2 to 3 year?
So I am waiting for backup materials from DCED about
Okay.
how to make this official and
Yeah,
get
yeah.
all that stuff in, because remember, we did a resolution the first time. I don't know if we have to redo the resolution with the actual numbers now as
Oh,
a start,
Okay.
but we have until December 2026 to finish this.
it's not a lot of time.
It really isn't. It's only
Oh.
a year and a half, really. Well, until we get the bids out and all that kind of stuff and come back, we'll get 2 summers.
But you're actively working on it, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And what is the duration of such a thing?
Hmm.
Like, in other words, does it have to be over a summer, or is
So it depends, because we're going to bring the systems up to current code. You need basically voice enunciation in the buildings, like fire.
Yeah.
If the infrastructure, the cabling can't support that, then it has to be recabled. Then you're talking more time.
Okay. So basically, every application in every building will be a different timeline,
Yeah.
a different duration. And then also the size of the buildings are different, I would imagine. There's more or less. Okay. So it would be good, just to keep everybody on the same page, if we can have, in terms of the presentation of this, I don't know if you want to do it at another safety and ops meeting or just bring it to the whole board. Because to me, I feel like, based on what we've talked about, this is something that needs to happen for the wellness of the buildings and everybody's safety.
Absolutely.
So if we could have, per building, in the order that they would happen, in a timeline fashion, along with how long each building would take. I don't know if that's information you can gather on the front end, or, because, in order to get cost per building, you have to know how long, right? And the scope.
I did provide our vendor with the prints, the electrical prints of the building, so they
Okay,
could do
so
the
that'll be part of their
takeoffs.
feedback.
We did do walkthroughs. So basically, they have to take those plans, which I don't have CAD files for, redraw them in CAD, and then they're hey, no, CAD guy, and then
Could have saved a couple bucks on that, maybe.
then their
Okay.
their NICET, whatever guy that's certified to do the fire drawings has to lay everything out, and then we have to get permits. So that could take a little bit of time.
Okay.
That's why I want to start on this, like,
So
Yeah.
for a
Now.
good example, right now, the administration building is having the work done.
Okay.
This exact work that will need to be done.
Yeah,
And we agreed to do that separately because that was not part of the grant.
right.
so that's
They've
about
been there,
it's going to end up being about 2 weeks.
and it's not horrible interruption, but it is still interruption. So for us, when they replace the heads, they have to get in a ladder, they have to rip it down, there's dust because they're moving all kinds of tiles around, have to rewire it, then they let it sit, rewire the whole building, now they're going back and attaching heads to it.
Okay.
We have to be concerned about if there are students and people generally in the buildings,
We have to be careful because the actual system has to come off. We've got to be careful if they can do parallels so we don't have to do firewalks. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on now in Joe's head that has to come out on
The
paper.
office,
so.
you can work offline.
Absolutely.
You can relocate. I
Yes.
understand that you can be down there. So that's a little bit of a different
Yep.
scenario. So obviously the summer would be ideal, but I guess if we have to package it in 2 summers, then we have to package
Yep.
buildings as well.
Yeah.
You know, have to do more than one building at a time. I guess that's I'm trying to frame it in my head.
Yeah, and they would have to wire it. They'd have to pull a new wiring or do Firewatch, because you can't intermix components of the systems.
Yeah, I remember you saying
So
that.
you can't take a Honeywell head and put it in
Yeah,
a simplex.
I remember you saying that,
loop,
right.
So it gets very complicated quick.
Okay. And I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing if they have to pull new wire, because then now it's fresh and it's new and it's all uniform, and
Yep.
you don't have to. To me, sometimes that's easier than splicing or patching, right? I don't know. So okay, seeing
I'll
the
work on
timeline,
timelines.
that would be helpful, and just so we could understand like when buildings would be offline, et cetera, especially because of all of the things we just talked about with programming and buildings.
Yep.
So the timeline, and that would be, so there's no approval needed for this, or we need the approval for the 25%?
Nope, I think it's all good. It's all
In the
wrote-
resolution?
Yeah.
Okay, and then with regards, just backing up real quick based on what I wrote, what is the timeline for the lighting and the paving? Are we still waiting on a timeline?
So I have the quote for the paving. We just started investigating the lighting.
Okay.
So I need to get with my guys and see what they came up with.
You think you could have that in a week, and we could talk about it in November?
Try my best.
Okay. I just feel like certain things, if time is of the essence, then we should just roll it
I mean,
forward.
as a stopgap, we can roll out, the portable light towers.
Yeah.
Understood, but I mean, at this point, we have, this weekend, we'll be in the stadium, I believe, Jim, right?
Mhm.
And then we're done.
Soccer's not in there?
Saturday.
Saturday. Saturday they're there, and then the following week, I think there's
Tuesday and Thursday.
Tuesday, Thursday,
Yeah.
and Friday. No, Friday is not. Friday's a game.
Right.
And then Saturday, they're not. Saturdays, we're in New Jersey. They're in New Jersey. So it's really just 3 more.
Yep. And
Or
that's,
practices.
Yep, that's what Dave said.
So I think all in all, there is time to rectify it, but I would like to have, what happens is we talk about it, time is of the essence, and then months roll by, and then the season starts, and then things aren't in place because it didn't get
Sure.
done. So I'd just like to have it for.
Hey, if I got to dig something up, I want to do it before we pave, not after.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
that.
don't want to be like PennDOT.
Right. There you go. Unless we go the route of the rentals. I mean, I don't know the answer, but if you'll find that out, that would be awesome. That, by the end of the year.
So I'm surprised Joe didn't say this because this is what he likes to say, that the paving season is quickly ending
Yeah.
because the plants close.
Oh, that gives you all the more motivation to get the lighting locked up. So you got next week is the end of October. It's perfect. Perfect.
I don't think the paving's happening this year, is it?
I don't think so.
The paving should happen before August.
Of next year.
Okay? Yeah, I mean, that's my idea in my mind is like before the season ramps up again, just kind of like the stadium. I wanted to make sure. And by the way, huge feedback on the tables. I think everybody loves them. Is it so exciting? Have you seen the tables in the stadium? It's very exciting. The kids love them. It seems like they're staying over there. I talked to Chief Miller. It's like, I don't know, it changed the whole vibe in there. And I really think it's been really positive.
Good. It's been a long time coming.
Really, right? I feel like we were talking about it for like 5 years already.
Yes.
So maybe add more tables if we had, I don't know how much they are each, but I don't know how many more you think we need, but I know we started with that, but,
Okay.
and then, is that it? Is that all you have?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Wonderful. The only other thing that I was asked about, which I don't know the answer to, apparently the lights in front of the elementary schools blink during the day from when kindergarten used to change.
What?
You know the lights?
The speed lights.
Right. So I guess
Because
there
they-
was a dismissal lights
Oh,
and
the,
arrival lights because of half-day
School
kindergarten.
zone lights.
School
Yeah,
zone lights.
that's an easy fix.
So I didn't know if that was everywhere. It was noticed that in the middle of the day, rando.
We can
you
just
know.
make notice to the municipalities. I thought it was done.
FYI, it might have been done in one place and not another. So I know in Skip Back they were
Thank
still
you.
blinking. Hey, you're
Thank you.
welcome. I don't know if we pay for that, but I'm thinking.
No, the township
Can't
covered
even
it,
imagine.
but
Okay.
they're the ones who regulate it.
And then the only other thing in my safety email about the lights and the paving was about the walkway that we always talk about once a year at least in front of the high school to across the street of Vincent's. Where do we land on that?
So I reached out to Cecile at the township just to get a starting point on what the township would require. Since it is a state road, you know, there's different regulations. Because it's not on the corner, they call it mid-block. So you would have to do a traffic study. I guess we'd have to,
Yep.
Gilmore, I think it, was it
Gilmore and Associates is who we've been using.
Has that been done though in the past, Jim? Because I feel like we talk about it once a year.
Yeah, I think it has been done.
I don't know the last time that one was done.
Probably sometime around when we did the addition, because we had kids everywhere. I mean, we were literally bursting at the seams. Let's look at that, but it's been a
It's
while.
just, I don't know.
I don't think a mid-block when it was done. I think when we researched it, it was about putting one at the corner because there was
I
money
don't
set
know, yeah.
aside for traffic light and
Sooner than
things
the
like that.
addition. It was like in the last, maybe before COVID it might have been.
Yeah, we talked about fencing across
We
the
talked
end of the,
about one up
you know, to control where the kids
So what's
would
going to keep
cross.
the kids from using the crosswalk? Like, how do you funnel them? Because I've almost hit a couple. I mean, they just run out in
They
front of you.
literally just scatter
They
across
don't
the
care.
street.
They just,
So that part I get.
yeah.
Short of having somebody there after hours while they're crossing.
Or is it a traffic light?
But to me, if the crosswalk's there, that lets the cars have more of an alert. Is
Right.
that true?
They just put one in just past district office for the trail crossing. That's
Oh,
mid,
really?
That's
Oh, really?
mid-block, right?
Where's that?
On the
That's south?
Perkins Trail. If you come out of DO on the other road make a right on 29,
Mm-hmm.
there's a trail crossing they just
Yeah.
put in with the blinkers and,
Yeah.
and all that.
Because I brought that trail crossing up, I think, the last time we had this conversation.
Yeah, so you've had this conversation.
And they just
with us
finished
more than
that.
once.
Yeah.
It's just very, very stressful to watch them jet across to Vincent's, and they're never going to walk to the corner,
No.
and there's not even a sidewalk where they walk up the drive through the parking
Right.
lot. They run down the hill and across the
So
street.
will we need steps then on the hill?
Probably.
I think
I mean,
I mean, yeah, that
I think it would be beneficial to do whatever we can to encourage them to cross at a particular location. So whether it's steps and fencing,
yeah.
guides,
Yeah.
just education in general. I mean, kids are going to be kids, but if we can get the lion's share of them to do what we want them to do.
And also create and visually have an awareness for drivers that they should be slowing down in front of a school anyway, but
Right.
I don't know. That to me it's very stressful. So we don't need anybody froggered across the street.
I think the other thing is we can always go through and apply, but you've got to go through PennDOT. Then PennDOT has their timelines and
I
their
remember that whole
procedures.
and the fact that it's a state
Yep.
road,
Right.
not a township
Yep.
road.
So I remember going through that up at Middle School West. We
Yeah.
wanted a stoplight, and we still have the 15 mile per hour sign. We've had accidents there.
yeah, that's a tough one too. You're
Unfortunate.
right about that. The way it comes,
Yep.
they come from this way. Yeah.
We applied, and they came back and said, "Oh, it's not warranted." And we said, "Okay, we've got kids there. I don't know what you're talking about, what is warranted or not." But and then sure enough, we had the accident there. We
Strange about it
Yeah,
is that
it's-
you think if it's a public school asking for it,
yes.
that it would be less pushback than just like a neighborhood. That to me is very strange. Don't you know anybody, Dean, that can just paint a crosswalk for us?
Yeah, what would happen?
I could buy you a bucket of white paint.
Forgiveness versus permission kind of thing.
Yeah, no.
There's darn kids again.
Oh,
Just-
look what they're out there graffitiing
Just-
a
Just
crosswalk
hand the
across
cards.
the-
This
Came in
guy
this
did
morning and
this.
there was a crosswalk here. I don't know.
And I actually think that's how we landed on the conversation the last time we had it. But anyway, it just seems like a silly thing that should be able to be fixed.
I have one thing to correct for you.
What's that?
Ken does not have his own card,
I didn't think so.
but Zoe
does have his own ID,
Zoe
though.
is the therapy dog at Schwenksville. Zoe has a card,
Zoe
but Ken
has
does
a
not.
card. Okay, well, I will talk to Mrs. Craven about Ken's card. I know that Ken has his own ID, and he is very, very sharp on his ID. So, I don't know if he can tab in and out of things, if anybody gave him access.
Denied.
But denied? Oh,
Just
so cute.
Doggy door. That's all.
That's not safe. safe? Could you imagine?
No, they do
Could you
have
imagine if we had a
Oh,
doggy
for
door,
Ken.
we'd have to no, I understand.
No, they have RFID dog doors.
Two?
Yes. They wear on their collar. They have a RFID and only lets them and not the raccoons in.
Sounds like money.
Yeah.
Brilliant. You have a lot of information, Joe.
I do. It's all up
We're
here.
so lucky to have Joe. Okay. You know this is my favorite meeting. Thank you for humoring me.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else? Make sure you guys sign in, please. There is a sign-in sheet up here.
Oh, high school vestibule I had from last month?
Hope
Any
meeting's
news?
over.
All right. I'll just send an
We
email.
actually talked about that just today
Okay.
with Dr. Russell.
Okay.
Nothing to report. We're still
You're working on
bouncing
it.
some ideas.
Fabulous.
There's a lot of build up for nothing.
Yes.
Nope, sorry. All right, that's all I got.
Okay.
Can't help it if you don't include last month's notes in your slides. What are you going to tell you?
Happens.
Thank you very, very much, guys.
Thank you. I think it was